I'm really pleased to introduce our speaker for this hour, Lynne Perryman. Lynne is the Vice President and Control Manager at JPMorgan Chase and has over 20 years of experience assisting internal stakeholders by identifying and mitigating risk for the current processes. And Lynne's career reflects a demonstrated track record of leading large-scale transformation initiatives, driving global execution of strategic initiatives, and the end-to-end execution of the risk and control self-assessment, including control breaks and resolutions. And she helps the firm reduce financial loss and regulatory exposure and reputational risk. All of these things are above my head. So this is fantastic. I'm really excited. She also serves as the national chair at JPMorgan Chase on DEI space. That's diversity, equity, and inclusion, focusing on advancing Black professionals. And she's also led the regional business resource group for the Illinois chapter. In addition, Lynne worked with After School Matters and other nonprofit organizations in collaboration with JPMorgan Chase, and has been and is a leader in the equity and inclusion sphere for the LGBTQ plus community, serving as a former board member of Equality Illinois, and the Center on Halstead, much more to say on that, but I will also point out that Lynne will be joining us again next month, a month from now, for our next Zoom drop-in on Wednesday, August 9th. And the topic then will be a fireside chat, LGBTQ plus identity, culture, and allyship joining with Sierra Balog, a Chicago Hyde Park Village former intern. So we certainly hope you'll join us for that. And I'll include that information as well in the chat right there. So definitely a double hitter. That's really fantastic. Looking forward to it. So, and Lynne, thanks for joining us here for our discussion of frauds and scams. And I'm happy to pass things over to you. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Lucas, and to the village, and to my mom, Lynne Perryman, because she's the one who suggested this. And working in the fraud space, it was a good suggestion. So just to give you a little background in English, because I know what Lucas gave you sounds pretty technical, but what I do day to day is I do work for JP Morgan, and I support the fraud program, but I support the fraud program for our commercial banking clients. So those clients are like the McDonald's, Abbott, any clients that bring in 500 million in revenue or more. We are providing fraud prevention tips to these organizations so they don't get hacked. They don't get compromised with ransomware. So before I go into it, has anybody heard of ransomware? Maybe on the news, where these businesses aren't using their strong passwords and they click on a link, their data gets compromised. And what happens is the crooks or the fraudsters will hold their data where these corporations can't make payroll until they pay a ransomware, until they pay them to release that data back, right? So it does put the company at risk where they can't make their payroll and they can't, run their business efficiently like they should. That is kind of in a nutshell what Lucas described and what I do. But why I'm here today is I do also work with the consumer side. So what does that look like? Chase branches, retail, how are they managing fraud? What do they see are trends? As we all know, fraudsters scam seniors because seniors are more vulnerable, right? So fraudsters will scam anybody. They scam me. I get emails all the time that are fictitious. I get robocalls all the time. We're going to get into some of those scenarios because I'm here to let you know what you should look out for and how you could do your due diligence before you respond to an email that you're nervous about responding to, before you send money, how people now will get into some details on how these fraudsters are spoofing people's voices to sound like your grandchildren or daughters. And, you may get a call saying that your granddaughter's in distress because of artificial intelligence and how they're taking those voices. a lot of times they could grab your granddaughter's voice and call you and say, I need $1,000. And you may feel vulnerable enough to send it because it sounds like your granddaughter. So I'm just gonna, high level, these are some techniques that I want to discuss with you and what we've seen as far as an organization on the financial exploitation of what's happening with seniors in the current environment. I want it to be interactive. So at any point, if you have a question, Lucas, if you could let me know, I'll definitely address the question during the presentation. So I know that I sent in a couple of slides, so I just wanted to kind of touch on those slides. So as we know, senior citizens often fall victim to financial exploitation. So it usually starts with a family member, unfortunately, a caregiver or a close friend that may gain access to your account information or your debit card. So this usually to help you or seniors, like what happens is we give this information to these people because we need them to help pay our bills when you get to a certain age or buy groceries. But however, you got to be mindful because over time, these people may take advantage of you and drain your account. This is a part of exploitation where you got to trust your caregiver. You got to trust anybody that you're giving your banking information to, because once that money's gone, it's hard to recover it. So what I want to do is start the conversation, and it may be scary, but it's important. So you want to make sure that you talk to your family dynamics, make sure you feel comfortable with the people and siblings or one sibling that you're giving that money to that you trust, that won't exploit you or drain your bank account. So a couple of things that I want you to understand to protect yourself and your loved ones, what we see scammers are doing now and the stories that they do to play on seniors' emotions to gain trust. I wanted to go over some of the themes that we're seeing in our current environment. So things that you have to be guard and mindful of the most popular scams that we're seeing, specifically with seniors, are the imposter scams. So raise your hand, because I could see everybody, if you received a call from the IRS or Social Security and they're asking you for information, because I get the calls. Medicare, Social Security, if you're on camera, yes, everybody does. We know how busy the IRS is and Social Security. Do you think they're going to be calling you to ask you for your Social Security number or a payment or a refund check? No. I mean, when we call, think about it. We're on hold for 5 hours. So they're not going to. So that is an imposter who's saying, I'm with the IRS. You owe back taxes. You better pay immediately or else I'm going to file a lawsuit. Hang up the phone. Don't believe it. Because you know genuinely you do not know, you don't owe the IRS, right? You would know if you know owe the IRS. The IRS, Social Security may call you and say, give me your Social Security number. You know that's an imposter. It's an imposter. You know why? Social Security should have your Social Security number. So when you get these calls, you could kindly hang up. You go to the internet or go to a family member, say you got this call, and look at the source before you send any money. You look at the source of where you received that call. And if you feel uncomfortable, call the IRS directly and say, did you call me? So that's one we see that is really prevalent right now. Another one that I wanted to discuss is the online romance. This is very prevalent. We see this scammed with a lot of seniors now, where, and even with me, if you have social media, Facebook, anything, LinkedIn, if your name is on the internet anywhere, a fraudster could get that information. They can find your phone number. They'll start calling you. They'll start sending you message through Facebook or Messenger, whatever online platform you may be on, and try to act like they're interested and maybe try to start an online romance. And they may start asking to meet you in person, but they can't afford to travel. Then they'll ask you to send them money. don't do it. It's a scam. This is another thing that we've seen that is high on our list where we see seniors are being compromised. Lottery winnings. This is another one. We saw this a few years back where it was, congratulations, you've won the lottery, and now we need to collect taxes prior to your payment. So they'll try to send you instructions to pay those taxes thinking you're going to get a lottery check back. Do not send money to anybody. Trust me. There are so many scams out here right now, and there's more that are coming. If you don't know the person, do not send any money or write any checks until you flush it out or even call me, because we see it. We see our clients losing a lot of money, and we also see it on the individual side as well. I could pause there if anybody has any questions or comments. Okay.
Well, and I had did you want me to share the slides, or you want to hang off on that still?
It's up to you. I mean, if I'm kind of referring to the slides,
Right.
but it's up to you.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and share. People might just enjoy having text to
Okay.
support what you're saying. Yeah.
I'll just share that yesterday I had a phone call from Publishers Clearinghouse telling me I had won $1 million, actually $5 million, plus a Mercedes. Wow. I hung up, so I don't know what I had to do to get it.
And that's good they hung up, right? Because
yes,
you know, I mean, but if you weren't on it or realized, you know, some people get vulnerable if the fraudster is saying, hey, you won this and now you pay $200 up front for these taxes and I'll send you a check. That $200 is probably going to be gone, and we need that $200. So thank you for sharing that. We want to be mindful of those situations. Another one that I alluded to earlier were the grandparent. We see this a lot, like grandma, grandpa, I'm in trouble, I need money fast. Please listen to me. They'll spoof your granddaughter's number, their voice. They will spoof it. So we know how the younger generation is, younger than me, younger than all of us. Their technology is very savvy, right? They're always recording their voices with the artificial intelligence. Fraudsters grab any recordings. They will spoof your grandchild's voice and will call you personally. And I'll use my mom as an example. My daughter will call somebody could spoof my daughter's voice. And if they call my mom and said, hey, I'm in jail. Hopefully this doesn't happen because I'm talking about my daughter, but I'm in jail. I need $1,000, grandma. Sounds like my daughter, 100% sounds like my daughter. Don't tell mom, but send it. It can happen. We've seen it. So just be mindful. If you get that call, ask what jail are you at? Let me call you back. Call your daughter. Call your daughter's husband or whoever, another family member. Is this true? Or give me the police station's number. Do not send money until you verify it. Susan, did you have a question?
Unmute yourself, Susan.
I'm sorry. I'm not sure, it doesn't belong here, but I do want to talk about ransomware because I've been a victim of that.
Really?
So it's not just big banks, it's ransomware took over my computer. And then I shut it down. And when I rebooted, I didn't reopen anything and it was gone. But I've seen 2 more attempts at it. And so
yeah, so what that is that's called malware for an individual. So there's ransomware where we're holding the client's information ransom on an individual level. And I'm glad you brought that up, Susan, because I was going to get to it.
Oh,
it's
I'm sorry.
called no, it's okay. No, I want it to be I want it to be interactive. It's called malware. And what happens is, and this is how you get compromised. So I'm glad you brought it up. You get an email from a fraudster and they have you click on a link within the email. Okay. And just like Lucas says, malware is malicious software. So when you click on that link, now the fraudster can be in your email, in your computer, you know, and now they've compromised your data, your password, and all that good stuff. So you have to be careful. If you get an email and you don't know who the source is from the email, because what happens is the fraudsters say my email is lynn.perryman@gmail.com, but fraudsters will put like an I at the end of my E in my name, and you don't even know it's there. And you may think, Susan, you're getting an email from Lynne Perryman, but you're getting it from a fraudster. And now I've put a link in that email. And when you click that link to say if it's like to purchase something, or, you know, they try to get you to click on that link, because when you click on that link, now they have your data. So you really have to be careful.
So I'm not really sure what the status of my computer is now, because I was doing a search about tomato plants, and there was one place where it popped up on my screen. I was to get more information. And then continue popped up on my screen. So I clicked on the continue because I thought it was part, but it really was malware. And then once I did that, then all these things started flashing all over my screen. I'm compromised, call this number, if I, to get my data back. And that's when I closed down my computer.
Good.
And we seemed to have been able to eliminate it. Well, I know that I tried to restore it after when I signed on again, and immediately that came up again. So I just didn't restore anything. But I've since had something like that, but I'm searching for some information that's popped up twice since then.
Yeah, and never go to, if somebody says call to get your stuff restated, don't call that number.
Right.
Go through
Yeah.
like the
Yeah.
trusted source like Google, because the recommendation for malware is always hover over hyperlinks to view the complete web address before you click on any links within the email address. Because when you click on that link, it will direct you to a web page that may look similar to one you've seen before. And then it's going to ask you for personal information. So the fraudster is saying, hey, you think you're going to be directed to this link, but they're going to direct you to a website to say, hey, give me your personal information, payment information, and they're going to try to get funds out of you.
Lynn,
Yes.
I had a situation last August that was different from Susan's in that my access was through PayPal. And I've had the exact same experience with ComEd and People's Gas and several other AARP websites that look exactly like the real one, all the way down to the bottom of the page. Every line is the same, except for the address that sent it. So, it comes up, it looks like the one you get every day. And so you don't pay much attention and you click on something. It lasted 3 weeks and 4 different technicians and $179 to get really good tech. And until they found the program that had been installed on my computer, allowing them to do this. And I claim it was teenagers, because I discovered over that 3 weeks that at nighttime and weekend, they weren't in there. But if I turned my computer on during the day, they were instantly, my cursor started to move.
Yep.
With them going, they went to they would go immediately to Amazon Xbox cards, and they bought them with my credit card.
Yeah. And thanks for sharing that story, Jenny, because that's what happens. I mean, I get them all the time. I just know not to click on a link. What we tell our clients and what I tell this audience is don't rely on email for any payment. If you get an email for any payment, or if you get an email saying click on a link for a website, pick up the phone and call the person who sent you that email, or call the corporation. You cannot rely on email. We tell our clients that. We tell the McDonald's Corporation, Abbey, Abbott, huge Fortune 500 companies, if you get an email from a vendor or somebody who needs to make a payment, do not rely on that email or the invoice in the email. Pick up the phone and call the person who's asking to receive that payment. Because what fraudsters do is they compromise your email, or they'll compromise the CEO of the company, or Jenny, they compromise yours. Once they have that, they're going to keep trying until they get something out of you. They got something out of you, right? They were able to trace your PayPal account, start purchasing stuff off of your credit card.
Yeah.
Now, we
Luckily, I
all
was-
know.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
luckily I was able to have that reversed both by my credit card and by PayPal.
And most financial institutions will do the reimbursement if they have the proper evidence. But what we're finding too, and I'm glad we're on this conversation, is a lot of fraud we see with checks. So if you can prevent mailing a check in the mail, you've probably seen on the news where fraudsters are stealing the post office keys. And what they do, even if it's a $500 check, right? I'm telling you, be careful how you send stuff electronically, but it's easier to trace than a check. When you have a check in the mail, somebody could take that check, forge, endorse it, go to the bank and open a fake account. So it's easy to open a fake account sometimes with a fictitious LLC or a corporation. We see that on our side, but it also can happen on the consumer side.
Lynn, I'd like to share a story.
Sure, please.
So my father, who is 86, received a $40,000 check from this man in Michigan. I actually looked him up, tracked him down, found him. He never sent the check, but it had his name on it. It was actually his address. And fortunately, my father just held on to the check. It was in his wallet and he forgot about it. But it turns out that man actually had a line of credit. So I'm assuming that, I don't know, maybe had my father cashed it or deposited it, I don't know, perhaps the line of credit would have been wiped out that this man had, but I'm certain that they would have used that information to get my father's checking account number because it would have shown. But it was really bizarre. Like, he didn't know this person. The man in Michigan didn't know my father, but he actually did have money in an account. It's really strange.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of things. Like, I don't know what the trickle down effect would have been if your dad would have cashed that check, but it probably would have opened up the doors for the fraudster to say, okay, now you cash the 40,000, maybe send me 20,000 of it. And that $40,000 check could be fraud. We've seen that, where this check is a bad check. They're going to put your dad in a predicament to cash the check or deposit it. And then they're probably going to ask your dad to send me 20,000. That check is going to be returned, but the fraudster would have 20,000 of your dad's money. And that check is probably fraudulent and it would be returned to that bank of first deposit. So your dad would end up still being out. And that's what I'm thinking the thought process of this was. Because what we see is a lot of fraudsters will rob Peter to pay Paul, not pay Paul, but they'll take money from somebody else, take your dad as the victim. Here's 40,000, cash it, you keep 10, give me 30, and that check is bad. And your dad will be out. So he did the right thing. I mean, if you don't know the person and you have no idea of, tracking this person or calling them, just don't send money, don't cash checks, because that's usually what happens. So thank you for sharing that.
Lynn, I'd like to add a little ironic humor. This shopping was being done on Amazon. And ironically, about 2 or 3 days later, I got an email from Amazon saying, we have some items we think you would enjoy looking at. And it was pages and pages of Xbox cards that you could buy. And of course, that was the algorithm thinking that I had done that, but talk about rubbing salt in the wound. So the automatic algorithms aren't human and don't catch on that this was not something good.
Exactly. And I'm glad you brought that up, Jenny, because it goes back to the artificial intelligence, machine learning, because technology is so prevalent now. That artificial intelligence, that's how they start spoofing the voices. And that's why I want you to be mindful. Because before it was like, we know it's email, malware, ransomware. Well, now they are literally spoofing voices, and that scares me, right? Because you just don't know who's on the other line. And if it sounds like a family member in distress, or it sounds like somebody that needs help financially, and you're, they're in a panic. If you hear a rush, oh, you need to do it right now in 5 minutes. You don't need to. Don't. Because that's where we see the red flags, like fraudsters are pushing, rushing. When are you going to send the money? I need the money now. Could be your granddaughter or grandson saying, give me the money. I need the money. I need to get out of this. I'm stuck. Hurry up. I need it in an hour. Don't trust it. And if there is an emergency, say, hold on a second, calm down. Let me call you right back. What police station are you at? Where are you at? I need to call you back and just confirm you are where you're at. And that's when you call your granddaughter, grandson, kids, whoever, cousins, and say, hey, got this call. Is everything okay? Before you send anything. Another thing I wanted to bring up is investment opportunity. So be careful of that, right? Like a lot of times we see, seniors saying that they want to invest, right? Well, you've registered to receive notifications on investment opportunities. Are you ready to invest? I have a once in a lifetime opportunity. Don't believe everybody, please, that wants to give you an investment opportunity. Go into a financial institution, talk to a financial advisor. Don't do anything over the internet or phone. Go in person if you can. I know at Chase, we have virtual online bankers that are, vetted. And if you need an investment opportunity and you can't make it in, do it the correct way. Tech support. We get a lot of scams where somebody from Google, I'm sure people have gotten calls from Google or Apple or something like that saying, we've detected malware on your computer. Let me help you get it fixed. But it's going to cost. This is where the vulnerability is in because, Sue, you've given a story, Jenny's given a story. And if the fraudsters really trying to get more money, they say, hey, we know you have malware. If you send me $1,000, I'll help you fix your computer. So there's different ways, though. They've already compromised you. Now they're going to say, send me money so I can help you fix it. And they're still going to try to get something out of you. So just be mindful of that. So before reacting to requests for money or personal information, and Lucas has this on the screen, so please remember this. Always end the conversation without, by no means, never share any money or information. As soon as a fraudster has your routing number and account number or any information on your banking account number, they're going to try to take the funds. Never provide the banking information, never provide your social security number, never send money without checking with family or bank, and never rely on an email or phone as confirmation of knowing who is receiving the information. So you guys will have this deck. Please reference it because there's good information here. I I also have some other things that aren't part of the slide, but I'll pause to see if anybody else has any stories they want to share or any questions. Okay. So how can fraud happen? So we're going to go back a little bit, and we've talked about it before. So social engineering is a fraud strategy, and we talked about that. And that's when fraudsters are sending emails and text messages and calling. These fraudsters claim to be healthcare workers, Social Security, and they've gotten this information because we all know we're on the internet, we're on Facebook, we're on social media. So the fraudsters get this information using those vehicles. We also know, we talked about malware. A lot of times these emails contain attachments, and it directs you to an individual website. We didn't talk about donations, but we've
Sorry.
seen, oh, go ahead. Somebody have a question?
I thought earlier, Helen, I thought I saw you speaking, but maybe you weren't asking a question. No.
Oh, I was just telling them how the IRS was going to come to my door at 6 o'clock with handcuffs and take me in. And I believed them, honestly. I called the police station, and the first thing they said to me is, please tell me you didn't send them any money. And I said, no. And then I called my daughter and started crying my eyes out because I really thought they were coming to arrest me. I was completely, it was terrible.
Well, I think I got one of those calls, and instead of saying policeman, they said cops. And right there, I decided this is not professional folks. But, you know, I just got one this morning from a fellow who called me Anna, which of course is not my name. And then he told me that he was with Microsoft technical support. And I said, goodbye.
There you
Now,
go.
I don't know what he would have done if I continued with him.
And
But,
that's one, yes, thank you for sharing that, because that's one that I brought up, is where Google, Microsoft will call and say, hey, you need tech support. No, if
Yeah.
you need tech support, you would call them and you would get a number from a trusted system, right? Let me look at the right Microsoft on the internet and call somebody because I know I need help.
Yes. Yeah.
How do they even know, right? So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Any other stories anybody wants to share?
But they're so creative and they're so persuasive. You wish these folks would apply their smarts to a more constructive endeavor.
Exactly.
I agree. When they call me, I act like I'm the FBI and I don't say too much. Just because I know what they're, so a lot of times I've seen a lot, but.
About a month ago, I got a call from Chase saying that they wanted me to update my information. And I said, well, I'll check that with my daughter since she works there. Call me tomorrow. So they're using Chase.
Yeah,
They-
I got a call from Wells Fargo, and it turns out I have a credit card with Wells Fargo. So first there were 2 robocalls, and then there was a person who called. But in between the 2 robocalls and the person, I called Wells Fargo because the robocalls said that there was fraud on my card. I looked online, I didn't see any fraud. The person at Wells Fargo said there was no fraud. So when the live person called me and he says, we need you to give us your address so that we can, he said, what did he say? I think he used a term for expediting mail that is not the typical language, to the point of Ina Grace. It was like, we need to express mail it or something, when he should have said overnight or something like that. And I started laughing. And the guy says, what's so funny, Miss Granger? And I said, I'm going to need you to stop this criminal activity. Since you say you need me to do this, I need you to do this. And then he hung up the phone. But
I
but
love
yes,
that. I love it.
it's awful. It really is.
So sometimes people, when they're aware that there's a fraudster or telemarketer or something, they'll play with them, they'll keep them on the phone. And of course, what they really want to do is just, make the hit and move on and talk to as many people as possible. So, but I just wonder if there is a risk to even staying on the phone with these people.
We haven't seen the risk of staying on the phone. I mean, they're going to keep you on the phone because the longer they keep you on the phone, they're convincing you more to, make you feel more comfortable with them. But I mean, you can hang up right away or just don't answer at all. If you see a number that doesn't look familiar, or you could do what Natalia did and said, hey, stop being a fraudster. Yes,
Okay,
Jenny?
Lynn,
We're-
the issue of not answering the phone with those numbers, living in Chicago, that's very difficult to do because everyone who moved to Chicago moved from somewhere else and their phone number is not a Chicago number. And so I started getting complaints from all my medical practitioners that I don't answer my phone. Well, that was because all the nurses and front people
Yeah,
were calling me from their cell phones, which are
yes.
from Texas and Pennsylvania. And I have the same problem with the food delivery people, Instacart. All of the shoppers are from some other state, not just outside, suburban Chicago. So I now, if it looks like it's anywhere near Chicago, I will answer it. And sure enough, it's usually a medical person wanting to make an appointment, give me some test results, figure out what we're going to do with something or other. So that whole thing about not answering phone numbers that you don't know anymore doesn't work for me.
Yeah,
No,
I think
me neither.
pandemic is when too, we started stop using desk phones. We're on Zoom, a lot of cell phone numbers, and the fraudsters know that. And it's unfortunate because now you see even the prefix of some phone numbers are similar to family members, like, wow, they're getting real good because the first 6 numbers are something that looks so like, wow, it looks familiar to me, So they understand every tactic. And I get it, Jenny. I get phone calls that could be somebody that is legit, but it's hard to make that balance. But if it's a healthcare professional and Instacart versus somebody saying, send me money and I'm in dire need, of tech help, or, I'm sending you a check.
Well, we Midwesterners are nice, right?
We are.
So I hate to be rude to somebody, but I'm not going to waste my time on all of these. I mean, they're endless. I was just looking today. I have an Iowa area code because that's where I moved from. So I can tell any call that comes from that area code that isn't my sister is not for me. Once in a while, I'll answer one that's from a town that looks, that is very familiar. And it'll sometimes be a real person just making a mistake call. I said, I don't think you wanted to talk to me in Chicago. And then we chat about the weather or what's the latest ball game going on in Cherokee, Iowa, kind of thing. And it's because we're Iowans, we have to talk to each other. But most of the time it's just totally, there's no, like if you call it back, it's not a number that works. And so my sister lives there and I keep asking her, where in the world is? And I've got this whole list of towns in Iowa, many of which I know, but some I never heard of before. And so I keep saying, where in the world is Olds, Iowa?
Yeah, they're sophisticated, but thank you for sharing the stories. I think this is a really good conversation. Anybody else have anything to share?
Well,
But,
I have a question. I don't know if you can answer it or not, but the situation I described where this thing started flashing all over my screen, is it possible they actually entered my computer? And I did not click anything at that point, but
Yeah, because what they're trying to do is find, Susan, your banking information. I mean, they try to, because everybody does online banking. So if they can hack your computer and you go to whatever bank you bank at, Bank of America, Wells, Chase, whatever, and you're looking up your information, they could be in, malware is compromising, right? So that's what happened with Jenny. They probably compromised PayPal account. They were able to look in it, see where she's sending money, how it's connected to Amazon. So when you click on those links, now the fraudster can be looking at exactly everything you're looking at when you sign on.
So Lynn, is it a good rule of thumb if the mouse is moving and you're not moving it, that you have a problem?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
100%. Even being an employee of JPMorgan, I just want to give you some stats here. We have a cyber team that monitors how many times employees or JPMorgan as a financial institution gets attacked by fraudsters. We get 108 million emails a day trying to compromise our data.
A day?
A day. But you can
Wow.
imagine
108 million?
it is crazy. But their emails coming, like, emails are fast, right? And we're a large financial organization, right? Global, worldwide. So if I get 10 in a day and 100,000 employees get 10 in a day, but cyber we don't get them a lot of times because we have a good, robust team who's saying, whoa, we're blocking all that. But they monitor.
Huh.
And if you watch the news this morning, it was on the news today that there was a China black market who's been compromising. Google put out a release today that they've hit 25 corporate agency and government agencies' emails. So it's real life, was on CNN and MSNBC today, and Google said this happened back in March, and they're trying to figure out, and they said government agencies' emails got compromised.
It's interesting that I have had 4 different credit card companies or other kind of companies with whom I do business contact me and say that my name has been compromised by a breach, that somebody got in. And so then they always offer me 1 or 2 years of free credit. What do you call it? Records, going to TransUnion and Experian and so on. So I've had free credit stuff for a long time because I've been, this has happened 4 or 5 times.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because always check your credit report. You could get, somebody can steal your identity. Always check your banking statements. Like, I check my account every morning just to see if anybody has attacked me personally. All my transactions have cleared okay. Check every day, because somebody could wipe your account out. Some people don't check their account till they get their statement at the end of the month. And you may not realize by the end of the month that somebody may have been taking $100 a day for the last 30. So if you can, check your banking account daily. Just make it part of your routine so you can make sure that so nobody is, because like Jenny or anybody, if you lose your debit card or if you lose a check, think about it. If that fraudster or anybody has your account number and routing number, I could call ComEd, I can call AT&T, I can call the cable company and say, I could take Susan's account number and say, pay my $500 bill and use this account number. Guess what? Susan's account is getting debited. If Susan doesn't check her statement the next day and waits till the end of the month, you're not going to be able to get that money back. You have a certain amount of time to process a claim, right? And get the money back from wherever that money went. So just think about that. Well,
when I used to write checks, I knew exactly what I was doing. Now, all my payments are automatically sent to, my account, and my account automatically pays all of those, all of my utilities, all of my checking account, all of my credit cards, everything. And so it's automatic. I never see the bill. I never see the payment being made. So when something does go a little wrong, it's, I got lazy. It was like happening automatically. Why did I have to pay attention? Well, I started paying attention when a credit card I never use anymore, suddenly I owed $25 on it. And I just, it was someone, how they make a small charge to see if it'll work, and then they make a bigger one. And so it was only because I should not have had any bill from them You know, otherwise, if it had been among those that I have lots of charges on, I would never have seen it
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because I've gotten lazy. I mean, I don't have to do any of this anymore. I don't write any checks.
Yeah, checks are a little dangerous. I mean, if they're small dollar amount checks, I wouldn't be concerned. Like anything under $100, banks will pay on those. But anything like above 100 and you're putting it in the mail, be careful. I'm sure everybody's seen on the news how the fraudsters steal the mailbox keys. They get the checks because they're going to use them to open a different organization, or, you know, go. A lot of fraudsters will take a personal check to a currency exchange instead of going to a bank, because a bank is going to have more criteria to check, like driver's license, ID, all that stuff. You go to a currency exchange, and then, you know, you're not dealing with the bank, where the bank could say, okay, I know this isn't Jenny or Susan or Natalia, you know, they have that information up. So be careful with that too. If you can avoid writing checks, avoid it.
Well, the other thing I read about is in stealing checks, that they have chemicals to erase the payee.
Yeah.
Yes, the chemicals are under your sink. I saw that on a 20. They take whatever under your sink, can take all the ink off without disturbing the check at all. And they just go ahead and write it.
Yeah, they could lift information, but we noticed too, like more consumer rights checks, like more corporations that I support, they use ACH wire, they send it electronically. They're not putting as many checks in the mail. A lot of people like to write checks because it doesn't clear right away. So you're floating it, you know, so I mean, let's be honest, you know, we could do it too. It's like, okay, it's due in 7 days, but it won't come out of my account. So, you know, we try to tell people, you know, even if you wait till that 7th day when you have the money, it's better to, like what Jenny did, set up automatic debits with the right utility company, and they're taking it out. And then you're checking your account every day just to make sure that it's coming out from the utility company. But yeah, Susan, they could, and my mom is right, they do show how you could lift the ink. And what happens is, if they do lift the ink and you did put something in the mail for $100, now they'll take this blank check that has your routing and account number, and say you have
Your
$1,000.
signature.
Yeah, and you know what? Bankers, banks don't really look at signatures that much anymore.
Right.
And you know why?
Yeah.
You can lift a signature so easy and fraudulently endorse it that a lot of our clients, I mean, everything is image cash letter. So it's like scanned and then electronically sent, because checks, the signature doesn't really mean anything right now, honestly. I mean, nobody's looking at the front of the check to make sure your signature matches.
In fact, I'm surprised that I just got 2 new credit cards, meaning renewals, and they're still asking you to sign the back of your credit card. I stopped that a long time ago and said request ID, but nobody cares. Now we touch, you know, we touch, or we swipe, or we whatever. We don't hand our credit cards over anymore. So I'm surprised that they were still asking for the name on the back of the credit card, but I didn't put it on.
So I don't sign my credit card either. I think that's a good best practice. And if you could use I tell people to use a credit function versus a debit function, depending where you're at and what type of transaction, because it's easier. The debit is coming out as cash. The credit is traceable. If you're in a situation and we need to recover it, you have a couple of days. But yeah,
And Chase, I don't know about other banks, but that's happened to me a couple of times, and Chase has had that money in right away, like 10 seconds after I call. But it comes out like a debit. It's exactly like a debit, but you just press credit. They will give you all your money back. But if you debit it, they won't.
share with everybody on the topic of check washing. That's, certainly we've talked a lot about that a few times before, and we produced a nice little handout that we distributed at a previous monthly lunch gathering, and we'll make that available again at the next lunch gathering, as well as the slide deck that Lynn has provided for us. And if you come to our next lunch gathering, which when is that? July 26th, we have gel pens, which are supposedly much more resistant to the check washing phenomenon. So we'll give those gel pens out to everyone who attends the lunch gathering. So yeah, and I'll put a link to that in the chat, our monthly lunch gathering.
But you hate to be suspicious of everybody. I mean, I'm a trusting person, but I wouldn't buy anything over the telephone or I don't give any information out through email or phones. If you stop to think about it, it's kind of scary. I mean, we're a small group relatively.
Mhm.
And look at all of the examples, and some folks haven't talked and maybe they've had, these scam experiences. So it's just everybody, everywhere.
It happens to me daily and I'm in the business.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm still a person who somebody's trying to get money out or scam or, fraudulently, have me do something that I'm not comfortable doing. So it happens to all of us. It doesn't matter if you're 15, 16 or 95 or 96 or 50 or 51. They're going to try to get anything out of you. And the reason why we see the uptick with seniors is because the vulnerability, right? Like,
yeah,
we're
trusting.
Exactly.
But the village has been helping some of our folks get online and get familiar with doing it. And now we've got to do more programs like this to say, okay, we're helping you get on the internet, but we also need to help you avoid a lot of these things.
And a great segue to end up the session, because I want to give you some tips to be vigilant and how you look out for these phishing emails, phone calls, text messages.
Great.
So some things to look out for is always check the email address of the sender, because we know scammers will create email addresses that may look familiar at a quick glance, and they're tricking the reader into believing the email is legit. So it's like the example I gave earlier where they may insert an I next to my, and if you're not paying attention, you think the email is legit. Another thing to be vigilant about, hover over hyperlinks to view the complete web address before you click on a potential malicious link. So it's like what you did, Susan, right? Next time you get a link within an email, hover over it. And if you hover over that link, it'll give you another name, and it's either going to match perfectly to whoever's supposed to send it if it's legit. Otherwise, you could hover over that name in that link, and it may say something totally different. So you got to watch out for that, especially if this person is asking for personal information or payment information. Always confirm the identity of the requester via an alternate. So like I said, always use a phone number. Don't rely on, it's good that everybody has internet, email. You're going to get stuff. It's good. But if anybody's asking for financial information or personal information, pick up the phone and call them back. Don't respond via email, because once you send social security number, your banking information, it's out there. Some common warning signs in emails include, this is what we see a lot: poor grammar and spelling, urgent language, fake logos, and little or no contact information. So if it's a scammer or a fraudster, you would see something that says Lynn, and then maybe my fake email address. If it's somebody legit, it would say Lynne Perryman, maybe my title, email, phone number, corporation, internet link. So just be mindful of that. Another thing is if you donate to any charities or crowdfunding sites, research the organization to determine it's legit. We see a lot of people, I donate to nonprofits, the Village is a nonprofit. You may get a call from somebody who's, I get calls all the time from Chicago Police Department, Fire Department saying, give to this fund. Yeah, I see people shaking their head.
Yeah.
Be conscious of that and research the organization. If you want to give, look on the organization. Don't give anything over the phone or look at the organization, call the 1-800 number and say, hey, I want to give. What is the best way to give? Like make sure it's legit. Also, be wary of obscure online retailers. Check their reputation when responding to special offers. My mom has been victim to this where there's a retailer, you buy something, but it's a fake retailer. So you never get your merchandise and you may have sent $200 and never got it.
Oh.
That happens a lot as well. Only shop at places that you know you're going to receive the merchandise from, because now these fraudsters will set up a fake store and you're buying stuff and not getting it. So please, if the product seems too good to be true,
It probably is.
it probably
And the reviews too, right? You want to check the reviews if you're buying something online. That helps.
No,
You know-
people pay for reviews now.
Yeah,
They
Oh,
do.
they do?
Yes, yeah.
yes. Especially on
Professionals
Yelp.
pay.
Well,
Don't
I learned
don't trust
something
Yelp.
It's all of them.
Yeah.
You know, Lynn, you were talking about how your large clients that you have and so on. But I want to remind each of us as individuals, we live in a small neighborhood, but I'm from an area of Iowa that has some very small towns. And 2 members of my family live in a town that's got 230 people there, although they're mostly commuters to work in like Sioux City or wherever. But the large industry in that town, there is one large industry, was hacked and totally shut down for over a week. And the reason I know about it is my nephew had been their chief tech person and had just left to go become an EMT now. He wanted to, change careers and help people. And so they called him back to help the new person. And it took them 10 days to get that company back online with all of its records and all that kind of thing, because they had been hacked by someone from, I don't know, Russia, China, something like that.
Yeah, it usually is. And that's what a ransomware hack is, when they hit the corporations, and then the malware is what Susan experienced. And when they hit the corporations, that means that wherever your nephew was working, they couldn't because the fraudster hacked all that information, a lot of our clients end up not making payroll.
Absolutely.
It shut their whole.
They couldn't purchase product, raw
Exactly.
materials and payroll, everything. I didn't ask him if they paid the ransom. I said that's a sensitive issue. I didn't ask.
It is. And I'm glad you brought up ransom, because usually when ransomware happens, the person who is committing the crime or the fraud wants to get paid in cryptocurrency. And the reason why it's done in cryptocurrency is because you can't trace it. And every financial institution can trace a payment electronically, but you cannot trace cryptocurrency. So these fraudsters get a crypto insurance agent that works with the corporation that's part of the scam to manage the flow of the money.
But
And
can I ask
Mhm.
Susan's example, how does she find out? If they're in her computer, who should Susan go to have her computer checked out that you could trust?
So
Nasser on 53rd Street.
Okay.
Usually when your computer, you want to like go through your virus, like the norovirus virus or Google to get the recommendations, but go to a trusted source to get to remove the virus. If you guys have good virus protections like the norovirus virus or anything like that to protect it, you should be okay once you've been hacked. But I would always go to like Google at a trusted number just to make sure you're okay going forward.
Yeah.
I think that's just a general word we're using, virus. Most of the time, there's not a virus. Most of the time, it's a program that they have installed on your computer, an app that they can just go
Yes.
in through, just like you can.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's what it took 4 different people, and believe me, they erased everything on my computer. They deleted this, deleted that, deleted this, and it took 4 times. We got to the top guy, and he found it.
Oh,
Good.
And it was just a simple little app that was nefarious.
crazy. Well, it doesn't make me want to use my computer or my phone or the email, right? You know?
I
It's
mean, but
very
that's
scary.
Yes.
here, but I mean, I know that that's my entertainment, that's your entertainment. So it's just me here telling you, watch out for this stuff, because we know we're going to be on the internet. We know our information is out there. We know fraudsters are going to try to attack. Just be mindful and never click on a link.
Yeah.
Always identify, verify anyone you're contacting by phone. Make sure the person is genuine, and don't wire money or checks without doing the appropriate due diligence.
Right.
Lynn, I thank you very much.
Thank you
That was
very much.
wonderful.
Oh, good. good.
It's so informative. I think we all learned a tremendous amount. And I think the last things you said is just perfect. Don't do any of
Good.
these things without really checking.
And I'll come
we-
back like, later in the winter or something when we
Yeah.
see right before the holidays of what you should be careful with like shopping and stuff. So if I see any trends, I can come back in a few months, because
I have a feeling this is,
Yes.
would be very
Ongoing.
worthwhile. Yeah,
Thank you so much.
well worthwhile.
you're welcome.
Thank you
My pleasure.
so much.
You're welcome.
you.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Have a great day.
Okay.
Don't
Bye-bye.
forget, everybody.
All right.
Lynn's
Bye-bye.
joining us again next month. I put it in the chat.
That's right. You put it in the
wonderful
chat. That's
presentation.
wonderful.
Thanks.
Totally
Great.
different subject,
Then, yeah.
but
Yeah,
one we
we'll-
also need. So
That'll be
very
fun.
good.
Okay.
Okay. Thank
Thanks,
you.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Care.
All right.
Bye.